And he opens up his mouth and starts smiling, and across the front part of his teeth, he's got "Go Blue" spelled on his teeth.
What? Welcome in. Dennis Fithian with you on this Thursday, February the 16th. We got the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football, and we're ready to go. That is little mystery audio. Whoever that person was talking about, we want you to wager a guess, and we'll tell you. We'll play the complete audio coming up in about 15 minutes from right now, and we'll tell you who was talking and who he was talking about. But if you have a guess at who he's talking about, you can go ahead and fire away. It's a person well known to Michigan fans talking about a person that's well known to Michigan fans. So there is your hint. You like recruiting? Well, we're going to be talking about recruiting today. I've got a fast five. I've got a February 5. I got a Fab 5 in recruiting, in Michigan football recruiting, that I'm looking at right now that I think have a really good shot at being part. They're not yet part of this Michigan football 24 class, but I think they've got a really good shot at being part of the 24 Michigan football class. And we'll go over those guys. And then who would have "Go Blue" spelled out on their teeth? Well, we'll talk some teeth, and we'll hear that audio coming up. Before we go any further, though, we have some breaking news. I see. We do have that breaking news sounder, I believe, still. There it is. The breaking news sounder. Michigan linebacker coach George Helow and Michigan have mutually agreed to go their separate ways. I see Bruce Feldman has reported that. So George Helow on his way out of Ann Arbor. Now, Chris Partridge has been linked to Michigan for a while now, and he is part of the Michigan staff, and you knew that there had to be a departure somewhere, and it made sense that it was going to be George Helow. So now Partridge slides right in there as your linebackers coach. And if you want to hear the Partridge parody, you can go back, I don't know, last week or so. I'm not going to sing it again, but I did have the 12 Days of Michigan with Chris Partridge. You can find that on this feed right there, and that's a real doozy for you. That is available for you. So, Michigan has on the offensive side, we know Matt Weiss, that wasn't something that anybody had planned on, but whatever Weiss was up to with the going into computers, we still haven't been able to figure that out. Maybe maybe that'll be just fine from a Michigan standpoint if nothing comes of that, and it's just he's out. But Matt Weiss, who was the co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, we know that he is out. And over on the defensive side, we know that George Helow now is officially out on the Michigan football staff. So you got Weiss and Helow out. You got Partridge coming in, and you get a new quarterbacks coach as well for Michigan. So there's some of the news for you. We're going to get to these recruits. As always, we'd like to hear from you out there, what's ever on your mind when you have Michigan fans. I like to hear it, see what Michigan fans are thinking about. Antoine wants a running back, Tatum from Texas. He just was on the outside. I was looking at Taylor Tatum, and he just was on the outside of my Fab 5, Antoine, but I was considering the Taylor Tatum TT, and Tatum could be part of this class. I'm not saying that, there's going to be more than 5, and I just picked 5. That's the way I went about it. So it's good to see everybody in here. Richard, that's coming in from Georgia, and Andres always has a few things. Very opinionated, Andres, about anything that's going on with Michigan. He is not here every day. I don't know if he's here every week. Once a month, we get a visit from Day Trois Sports Talk. And he was just thinking he would like to see some more explosive linebacker play. We were pretty good under CP. CP, Chris Partridge putting in there. I'm not 100% sure how good Partridge is as a coach. The one thing that I do know is that he is an ace recruiter. And speaking of ace recruiter, that's what we're talking about. Let's start at number 5, the big Fab 5 on the recruiting board. I have Justin Scott profile sitting in front of me. This kid is 6'5", 310 pounds, defensive tackle out of Chicago. He is a 5-star in every way that you want to look at him. 5-star is the very best. Justin Scott from Chicago, Illinois, Michigan. You know, when you have a 5-star, you got to be on the lookout. Michigan will have to watch out for the 2-time defending champ Georgia Bulldogs, who Scott is set to go check out. And, Georgia gets their teeth into you. It can be tough to wiggle out of there. So this will be a tough one for Michigan. 5-stars are a tough land anyways. It's going to be tough with how the climate is now for a 5-star. That does not mean that Michigan should not be going after him and try to do everything they can. They are. And at 5, a 5-star, Justin Scott from Chicago. Moving on to the number 4 slot of the Fab 5 in February from Good Afternoon Michigan Football. We've got at 4, a 4-star out of Olney, Maryland. Somebody was just talking about linebackers. How about Aaron Chiles? Aaron Chiles, 6'3", 220, out of Olney, Maryland. You got to look out for the Clemson Tigers when it comes down to Chiles and whether or not Michigan is going to be able to get him. It would be nice to see that would this Chiles. You can see I just got, if you're watching, a thumbnail picture of the young man, but you can tell that he would look good wearing the maize and blue. So at number 4, Aaron Chiles. On to number 3 for the February Michigan football Fab 5. How about Brady Prieskorn? Right here from the state of Michigan, Rochester Adams High School, Rochester Hills, Notre Dame. Notre Dame, big tight ends, big white tight ends. That's Notre Dame. But, Michigan, in the way that they have been using their tight ends, the way that the success that U of M is having at the position, 6'6" tight end right here from the state. How about it with Michigan and Prieskorn? Prieskorn is number 3, but you got to look out for the Fighting Irish, who, South Bend is not all that far away when you're talking about Notre Dame. And Prieskorn is a good one, but Michigan has had their eye on him for a long time. And, I feel pretty good. Now, Antoine was talking about a running back in Tatum, and I was looking closely at Tatum, but I do have a running back on the list, and it is Jordan Marshall out of Cincinnati Moeller High School in the state of Ohio. Marshall just recently put out a top 4 that included Ohio State, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Michigan, but Marshall has been up to Michigan a lot. And Michigan people feel really good about Jordan Marshall and the chance. He's a big running back, 6 feet, perfect size, 200 pounds. Maybe you want to see him a little bit bigger there. He's in high school. Could put on another 5, 10, 15 pounds. But he's about as good as it gets. The 4-star out of Cincinnati Moeller, Jordan Marshall, who is number 2 on this list. And number one, I know Antoine could predict who number one is. You probably could too. It is Jadyn Davis. Jadyn Davis, number one. He's a 5-star. You may have heard of him. The quarterback out of Providence Day in Charlotte, North Carolina, a 5-star in every way that you want to look at this signal caller. He is obviously interested in Michigan. If you want to know who Michigan's battling with, Carolina, his home state, Clemson, nearby in South Carolina. The Buckeyes have been interested in Davis since they lost out on Raiola, and then Georgia is always there as well. But Georgia, I think, has already got a quarterback. I could be wrong for the 24 class. Doesn't mean that they are not still recruiting them. And, again, when it's a 5-star, in particular, a 5-star quarterback, you're going to have everybody trying to get a hold of you and get you to come play quarterback. Michigan has been all in on Davis. They've had eyes for Davis for a long time. And as you know, the forecast, the 50 forecast for Jadyn Davis is Michigan. I predict that Jadyn Davis will choose Michigan. I've got my official forecast in on Jadyn Davis to Michigan. Now, I know it's been a long recruitment. You've heard this name for a very long time. That does not mean that it's going to happen. Even if you are saying it and you want it, doesn't always happen like that. So let's go through some of the feedback here on some of the recruits that I have. The coach wants me to go to YouTube and look at this guy. He thinks he's another Kenneth Walker. Peyton Lewis, 6'1", 190, a running back out of Salem, Virginia. 6'1". I'm trying to get Michigan to look at him. Oh, well, send his tape down to the football office if you're trying to get get the Wolverines to look at him. Okay, I'll have to remember that. Let me jot that down for the homework from the coach. Peyton Lewis reminds him of KW K9, Kenneth Walker. Antoine, as it comes to running backs, it seems like the coach likes YouTube and is watching high school tape on these guys, and you're picking to see which ones he wants to come to Michigan, which is it's you're heavily involved in it. And that Tatum likes baseball and likes the Michigan baseball program. A strong possibility to come. He likes the Michigan baseball program. A 2-sport star never hurts. I don't mind baseball and football players. Not bad. Different seasons, you get some overlap there, though, when it comes down to it. The punters wants Tatum or Marshall at running back. So there you go. I'm thinking the same thing, the punters. I picked one because I think it's more likely that Michigan gets Marshall, but they, could get Tatum. Heck, they could get both Tatum and Marshall. Why not? 2 top running backs. Richard wants to know where all the 4'4", 235 linebackers. That's not asking too much. He's joking, he says a little bit later on. Detroit talking about Partridge did really well in New Jersey for Michigan. I think they're subpar recruiting classes. I think they're trying to correct that. Well, they're trying to correct last year's because the year before was a top 10. So there's no doubt that Michigan wants to do better in recruiting this year. I didn't hit the panic button this year with how name, image, and likeness was going. Michigan was finding out how they were going to do there. And in some ways, they do really well. In other ways, like attracting the top players in recruiting, they're not doing well, but they're off and running for the 24 and 25 classes, and they're doing things, name, image, and likeness behind the scenes. It's like they're going to do everything they possibly can except cross the Rubicon into what everybody else is doing and saying that they are just going to promise them money. They don't. They're staying on that hill. They have been on that hill. It has been the reason slash excuse for Michigan for 25 years why they haven't been able to beat certain programs or win it all every year, because the other teams are dirty and give people money. So now that you can, even though technically you can't, Michigan does not want to wade into those waters. And so they won't. They'll go and go about it a different way. We talk about it a different way almost every single day. You guys all know that, but they're trying different things. Bringing Partridge, who is known as an ace recruiter. It's a different time with name, image, and likeness. If Partridge is pulling guys, in particular 5 stars, in the now era of name, image, and likeness, without Michigan paying upfront money, then this guy's worth his weight in gold. Facts when it comes down to that. So let's see how that goes about it. Andres would like to see Bryce West and Jordan Marshall keep the Ohio pipeline going strong and keep them away from the Sockeyes. Yep, I considered Bryce in the Fab Five. In the end, I went with my 5. Those are the guys that I ended up going with. Andres is pointing out so far my accuracy rate as a fledgling forecaster, and he's right. The first ever 50 forecast went to Nichols Harbor going to Michigan, and on signing day, I took the pie right in my face, as it didn't happen, as he decided to go to South Carolina and not Michigan, despite my forecast. But I would like to have got my first forecast correct. There's no doubt about that. If I'm getting into the forecasting business, I would like to point to my track record and say, hey, look, I've only made one prediction and it came through. I'm 100%. But what are you going to do if you're a home run hitter? If you're Aaron Judge this year and you step in at Yankee Stadium after hitting over 61 home runs last year, and you dig in for the first time in front of Yankee Stadium and you strike out, are you going to go back? Yeah, you're going to throw your bat, you're going to take your helmet, you're going to throw it down, you're going to say, I'm 0 for 1. But you know that you've got a lot of other swings to take. You can't be deterred, Andres, by striking out. And I am not. I am right back in there with Jadyn Davis with my picks. And this time I know it's not an opinion. That is straight facts. That is right. We have breaking news. Antoine has been hired by Michigan as a recruiting analyst. He's going to join Chris Partridge. I think it's a good hire. Chris could take a few minutes out of his day, and he can link up with Antoine, and Antoine can say, look, I have sent you 5 videos today of running backs, or not, it doesn't have to be running backs. I've sent you 5 videos today that you need to look over and see if you guys want to offer scholarships to these players. And it's leaving no stone unturned. As we found out last week, I knew this, I thought before, but the coach is a local guy. So, you're keeping it in the state of Michigan. But as we also found out today, that the coach is, he's not just concentrating on state of Michigan players. He'll go out and look at a player from Pennsylvania or whatever, or Peyton Lewis from Virginia. No stone unturned. I like it as a Michigan recruiting analyst. And who knows, the way the coach is going, they might end up, and you could do it without, getting hit with a, catching a violation like they did last year. you can, as an analyst coach, you can go onto the field and do some coaching too. And maybe they'll put you with a running back. You can go over to Donovan Edwards and you can talk about ball security a little bit more, or what you want to see from Blake Corum or Tatum or Lewis if they get him, or Marshall, the new running backs that are coming in. You can look at Benjamin Hall. Maybe that could be your pet project, working on one of the incoming freshmen, maybe Cole Cabana, and his receiving skills coming out of the backfield for Michigan, or maybe last year's running back who's in an interesting spot, C.J. Stokes. When we saw Stokes with the ball, there's some promise there. There's some moves. You can see it. And yet we know that he fumbled and was in the doghouse for a while. We also know that, towards the end of the season, he looked like he was back in that doghouse, couldn't get on the field for Michigan. Big year. An analyst such as, Coach Johnson working with him, we could see what could happen there. So that's it. Sam is joining us. Guitar Sam says, hit the like button. And whenever I see Sam say this, I tell people that after the show, the first thing I do is I go into YouTube and I set the rundown or whatever we talked about today, recruiting, and the Fab Five, and I'll put that in there. And when I'm on that page, there's the like buttons right there, and I always see, hey, I see how many people push the like button. I think I don't know if people like you come in and if you always push it, I like that. Or do you watch the show and then at the end or whenever you're going to leave, determine like, I don't really think he did that good of a job today, so I'm not pushing the like button. Or then you're watching it and say, you know what, today he deserves a like. I'm going to tell you this. Anytime you watch, you listen, you comment, you subscribe, you do any of those things, and you push that like button, I am very grateful for you doing that. I appreciate it. It's like Matt is saying. It's like Shane, who likes my Fab Five list. He says, I'm spot on. You went with all the guys who have a great shot at, unlike West, the kid from Ohio. Yeah, I wasn't just going with the guys that I want. Now, I do have to say, Shane, when it comes to the 5 stars, like Justin Scott, if I was looking for accuracy, this isn't a forecast segment. This is just a 5-star list in February of players that are on my radar in the top 5, and really guys that I would like to see Michigan land. If I was going for players that I think that they had the ultimate best shot on, I don't know if I would have put Scott just on Michigan's track record the last 2 years with 5 stars, and that, he's got interest in Georgia. I would have put another player in there, but Scott is somebody that I know they are going after. He is pretty close from over there in Chicago, and I know Michigan wants him badly, so they're putting the full court press on him, and it would be great. What at the bookends of this 5-star, Shane, when you got Jadyn Davis and then you got Justin Scott. If Michigan was able to get these guys, what a coup that would be for the Wolverines. We could sit back here and let's just say that Michigan in a month's time, I don't have a timetable on all of them. Davis in the spring is set to come back to Ann Arbor. Maybe that's when he'll pull the trigger. I don't know. Maybe that's when he'll say he's going to Michigan. I don't have the best feel on his timeline on when he's going to commit. Same thing with Scott. But if they do, it wouldn't be like Michigan winning down at Ohio State this year or winning in Ann Arbor the year before. But in terms of what it means to the program and what it could mean to the future, it's what people have hoped for when they've sat around and thought about Michigan in their life. There's Michigan, every program is looking at things that they need to get better at, things that they could, the dream scenarios. And the dream scenario for Michigan, they have so many of the things that you want. And other programs are like, oh my gosh, you guys sitting around talking about, Michigan needing, because Michigan, they're the envy of almost every college football program out there when it comes to, the national recognition, the brand of the Block M, the colors, the helmet, the stadium, down the list, the academics, all of it, the success on the field, the coaches, everything that you could want is there. And then last year at this time, we were talking about, but the transfer portal is really hurting Michigan, and so is name, image, and likeness. And then, bam, this year Michigan went out and got the Magnificent Seven in the transfer portal. It's going to go a long way to how successful Michigan is going to be next year if they come up with 1, 2, 3, 4 starters, 1, 2, 3, 4 impact players out of the portal. There's the possibilities there. That doesn't sound crazy. Sir, I would expect 3 starters, and I'll say 2 to 3 impact players for Michigan coming out of the transfer portal. And that's being kind of, conservative as I take a look at it. But now you're not worried about the transfer portal. That last hurdle is Michigan not having to deal with teams and money. And if they had an even playing field when it came down to being able to get players with the name, image, and likeness programs, they would be more competitive, or as competitive as anybody out there. The last hurdle is just the upfront signing bonus money. That's it. That's why we talk about it so much. That's why once in a while, I think a lot of us are just like, why don't you just go ahead and do it? Just go ahead. Go ahead. Don't worry about it. It's not going anywhere. You have to. Michigan's trying to do everything they can so they don't have to do that. But if they do, that would be the last hurdle. I don't know. We would be sitting around here and you'd be thinking, like, if Michigan had an even playing field that way, I feel like the floodgates would open up, because then the Fab Five, I think, would turn into a tantalizing 10. And I think 7 of those players would be 5 stars. Michigan would then be recruiting like Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Clemson. They would be right there with them all, reeling in the 5 stars as fast as they can. That's the last one. So we're waiting. We are not holding our breath. Sam talking about George Helow out as U of M linebacker coach. Sam, you must have just got here. We did. You referencing another site. You are correct. That site is correct. They must have been watching the beginning of this show. That's what they were doing. Yeah. Helow and Michigan have mutually agreed, according to Bruce Feldman, to go their separate ways. Interesting question from DTWAST. Would you hit the panic button if Michigan's class is bad again next year? Yes, I would. I certainly would have my hand over it and getting ready to push it. The way that I might not is, let's say Michigan has a great year next year. Not too hard to imagine. They beat East Carolina, UNLV, BG, Rutgers. They go to Nebraska and beat the Cornhuskers. That would put them at 5-0. They go to Minnesota, walk into Minneapolis, punch the Gophers in the mouth, grab the brown jug, 6-0. Indiana, 7-0. At Michigan State, 8-0. Purdue at Penn State, going to be a tough one. They win it. 9, 10. At Maryland, 11. They bring in Ohio State on November the 25th, and they beat the Buckeyes again. 12-0. And the last year, then I think we're going to have the East and the West that go back to the Big Ten title game and they win it again. 3 straight years in a row, they beat Ohio State. 3 straight years in a row, they win the Big Ten. What was the question? Oh, would I be panicking if they had a subpar recruiting class or a bad recruiting class? If Michigan then went to the transfer portal, and this year, along the way, like we just talked about, they had 3, 4 players contributing, impact players. Let's say Ernest Hausman was a star at linebacker, the transfer from Nebraska. Let's say Josiah Stewart from East Carolina turns into this rush edge of David Ajabo like, and sacking everybody in sight. Let's say that Drake Nugent is like Oluwatimi at center. 3 big-time impact guys. And Michigan then goes back to the transfer portal, even though they're having a subpar recruiting class, and they're just pulling the top guys again. Pull. I think you would just have to, while you'd say, man, recruiting. What if then Michigan is just pulling guys from the transfer portal? What if it's a quarterback, one of these 5 stars that Michigan wanted that got their money somewhere, got back in the portal, now wants to come to Michigan? So I would say probably I would hit the recruiting. I would hit the panic button, but there's always all of a sudden my face is itching. There's always situations where you'd have to look back, right, Antoine? Shane says the tight end on that list is going to be better than Loveland. He's a must get in your backyard. Whoa. What I have known, I have seen Shane on the feedback before, and he is pretty measured. So for Shane to be talking about Brady Prieskorn as being better than Colston Loveland, hair flying off to the side, and he is in Michigan's own backyard. All indications are that Michigan is doing really well with Brady Prieskorn. That Prieskorn is going to be in the maize and blue sooner or later. That's why he's 3 on the February Fab 5. Am I ready to put a forecast in on him yet? Ooh. I'm almost ready to put a forecast on Jordan Marshall. I'm holding out on that. I have a forecast in for Jadyn Davis to go to Michigan. I'm almost ready to put Jordan Marshall on commitment watch. Shane, I'm going to have to do a little bit more digging on Prieskorn. But if you're asking me, fork to my nose right now, make a prediction, I think he's going to Michigan. Fork to my nose on Jordan Marshall. I think he's going to Michigan. Jadyn Davis is going to Michigan. Jordan Marshall, I think is going to Michigan. Brady's Prieskorn, I think is going to Michigan. Aaron Chiles, I would like to see go to Michigan. Michigan, the way the outside linebackers, the size, the prototypical defensive end outside linebacker for Michigan. Why wouldn't he go to Michigan? The answer is there is no reason except, there's only one reason. Maybe there's a few others. But Michigan's got a great chance at Chiles. And if they got a good chance at Chiles, then how about Scott? Big Justin Scott. You're telling me that Justin Scott is a junior in high school and is 6'5", 310 pounds right now. And I'm just taking a look. I just have a headshot. I have not watched a video like the coach on here. But it all looks like good weight. Like, it doesn't look like there's any bad weight. Like, this kind of weight. That's some bad weight. He looks like he's carrying at 310. It looks like he could carry. I like guys that he's not smiling in this picture, but he kind of looks like he's got a grin on his face like, I could go 3.25 easily and be the best defensive tackle in the country. And the other part, you look really close. I think he's saying Michigan. Now, I see what you're saying, Shane, about Prieskorn. Let's see what some other are saying. Ant will chase the kids away by shaming them and calling them divas. Just kidding. Yeah, I haven't noticed that. Ant seems like he is all for Michigan. He doesn't just comment on Michigan. He's watching. There's nobody that likes basketball more than Ant, and Ant seems like he's very much pro Michigan. I'd put him in that category. Makic was the 2019 Coach of the Year. That is right. You are correct on that. Let's take some more on the feedback. Cole Cabana. Richard is looking for him to be another all-around guy. You mean by all-around guy, a guy that can run between the tackles, an all-around guy that can get out of the backfield and catch the ball coming out of the backfield? You mean an all-around guy, somebody that you could put back on kick return, somebody that you could put back on punt return? An all-around guy? You mean somebody that runs a sub 4.4? Yeah, Richard. Michigan's going to find a spot somewhere on the field for Cabana. When you're running closer to a 4.3 than you are a 4.4, you find a way to see what you can do with this guy. Andres is going to be honest here. He kind of wants to see Orji get a chance in 24 as QB1. The upside there looks unreal. Yeah, it's a good idea, Andres, of things to think about and talk about next week, because you're thinking about the spring game, April the 1st. And so we're midway through February. So, we've got 6 weeks. At some point, talking about the things that we want to see for spring, is going to be real. Seeing Alex Orji at QB along with Davis Warren in the spring game, you're going to see JJ. We saw a lot of Davis Warren last year. Let's see Davis Warren again in the spring game. Let's see Alex Orji. And if Jadyn Denegal is still that quarterback, right now I think he is. Maybe he'll try another position. Maybe he'll stay right there at quarterback. Let's see him. Remember, you got Tuttle from Indiana, that quarterback depth, and, it's going to be spring game. There have been spring games in the past where once the first and second string quarterbacks are out there, a series or two, a series or 5, and then you got the backups in there, it becomes like, okay, this was fun. It's a little chilly out. I'm out. Been that way. Not for the diehards. And then last year, Davis Warren was out there for the whole time, slinging it all over Michigan Stadium. Like, this guy's making all the throws. He was fabulous for the spring game, because you were like, this guy looks like a QB1. He's got the arm. He was moving it around a little bit. And then Orji, we saw a little glimpse of him, strong. We saw that picture of him last week where he looked like he had a Jalen Hurts type build. He was in shorts and a running tank top, and he was sprinting. And it was like, if you took, you can do this with Photoshop. If you took Orji's, that's what, if you take Jalen Hurts' head and put it on Alex Orji, just say, yeah, there you go. Look at how built Hurts is. It looked like a monster. Then you'd say, hey, this was Photoshopped. That's Michigan sophomore quarterback, or redshirt freshman quarterback Alex Orji. Everybody would be like, wow. Yeah, I'm with you, Andres. I want to see that too. Richard didn't mean this to be funny, but I'm about the Orji humor. There's nice pics of an orgy going around. That's not what he's saying. Nice pic of orgy going around. Be careful. It comes down to that, Richard. If you're working, people are like, "Oh yeah, well, nice pic of." Show me a pic of orgy, of a nice orgy. Nice pic of an orgy. I didn't find anything. That's good. Yeah, we want honesty on the show. Matt wants 5 stars. If we could keep a lot of these 4 and 5 stars from our part of the country from going to the SEC, that would benefit our area tremendously. AJ says, I hit the like button every time, Dennis, even when I'm mad at you. Well, there's only been like 4 or 5 of those cases, Antoine, where you and I are talking route trees. I want you to know, I thought that I was thinking of you when I put Jadyn Davis at number 1 in the Fab Five. I was thinking of you last week when I was typing up the Chris Partridge 12 days of Michigan football, and it was a partridge and some new route trees. That was for you, Antoine. So that's it. A lot of orgy talk. I have to get that hype train for spring. Get that going next week. You know who's going to be number 1 on that list right now? Orji. Andres does not like the Wildcat, but he is in there on the shotgun. How about some pistol? How about the rugby scrum from Orji? You know, the thing with Orji is that you just go empty. Is it really a Wildcat if you're a quarterback? If you just send Orji out there and he's the quarterback, and let's say you have Donovan Edwards in the backfield, and Orji like lifts up his right foot, gives a little, what do they do as a QB? Let me see if I can do it. Lift your right foot up, a little nod over at Donovan Edwards. The next thing, Donovan Edwards is lining up as a wide receiver, and it's empty, and then Orji backs out, and then he's waiting there in the shotgun position. Is that a Wildcat? Or is that just Orji chilling as the quarterback? Now, if I was the defense and it was inside the 5 and I saw Orji coming in, it was Michigan, McCarthy. Michigan gets it down to the 4, 1st and goal. And they say, here comes Alex Orji. And I was on the defense, I'd say, this guy's going to be running the ball. But if Orji does what I just said he did, and when he gets the ball, instead of running, I wasn't talking to you. He throws the ball to Donovan Edwards. Now I think we're on to something. It is a little, I don't know, it's a little, it takes a little bit of swapping out players, and you got to be careful because McCarthy's pretty good inside the 5 himself. And then you think about rhythm of the game and bringing a backup in, or in special situations, and you got to be careful and all that. But there is going to be an Orji package. How much the package is unleashed, how much you actually, like, we all think about an Orji package, but then how often does really anybody get an Orji package, for that matter? You dream about it, you think about it, but then you don't really get one. Shane talking orgies. Orji will play this year when most of these games are going to be 49-7 in the 3rd quarter. Well, let's see, Shane, how many games are going to be like that? East Carolina, the opener? Okay, let's see some Orji there. Second game, UNLV? Oh, okay, that's an Orji game. Game 3 against Bowling Green. That's an Orji game. The first 3 games could be Orji games. Rutgers, That's at home. 2 years ago, remember, Michigan didn't score a point against Rutgers. Could that be an Orji game? Probably not. At Nebraska and at Minnesota, maybe. And they'll blow one of those teams out. One of those games are going to be an Orji game. Indiana, that could be an Orji game. At MSU, I think you can have an Orji package at MSU. You want to tack up the points. You want to run up the score a little bit in football on Michigan State. You do. I mean, it's all in the gamesmanship and just that kind of thing. But yeah, 49-7 against Michigan State in the third quarter. I think you could see Orji. Whether you like it or not, players will go to schools that pay if they are really good. The NFL is not guaranteed, people, and money can buy real estate now. You're not living in reality. No, I am living in reality, and that's the part. I look at it like this. If my son, I won't even say my son, let me just say my next door neighbor's kid would get a 5-star ranking as a high school football player. So he could go to anywhere in the country, and he came over and he'd say, where do you think you should go? I'd say, I think you should go to Michigan. But then he would say, I called Michigan and they like him, but they're saying that once he gets there and once he gets out on the field in a year or two, he can make that he could get a $90,000 truck like Colston Loveland. And in 2 years, he might be able to get, a 6-figure, if he's a really good player, might be able to get a 6-figure deal in, with name, image, and likeness. So in 2 years, he could get, 6 figures. Notre Dame's calling up saying that they'll put 6 figures in his bank before he even goes to South Bend. Let's say Ohio State. Let's say, Pittsburgh has said that they will give $200,000. He's a 5-star right now. South Carolina has said Nicholas Harbor has called and said, hey, you can get $250 before you do anything. $250 up front is better than the promise of being a freshman All-American and getting a car. Or if you do that for 2 years, you can get $200,000. 2 years at Michigan to be able to get to $200,000, or you can just have it right now. That's what, if they're telling that to me, I'd say that's going to be a difficult decision, but you should go to Michigan anyways. That's going to be my line. But then, they might say, I'm watching the podcast and Detroit Sports says, get real. He's telling me to take the $250. Who's the other big quarterback Michigan used to have like Orji? Who's the other big quarterback? I don't know. Joe Milton, Dylan McCaffrey. Both of those guys could run. Actually Milton couldn't run. I mean, he was a little bit athletic. There was the game, was it Wisconsin or was it Nebraska, where both of those guys got in there. And, you saw a little bit, you saw the athleticism from Joe Milton, but he was never like a tough guy, even though he looked like he was, to bowl you over at 6'5", 250. Dylan McCaffrey, because of his brother and his mother and his father and his grandfather, you thought that I thought that guy was going to be like J.J. McCarthy, that's how he was going to play. And I don't know, they gave the job to Joe Milton when he was just throwing the ball, in his spandex. Dylan McCaffrey really never got a shot at that. I always thought that he could have been. I know he didn't go on and he wasn't great and everything else. I don't know who else you're talking about. Way back in the day, there was a guy that got hurt. And he was he from Romulus? Was he from Belleville? Antonio Bass. Antonio Bass was going to be, it was like Antonio Bass was right along the same time as Michael Vick was at Virginia Tech. And Bass, I believe, was a southpaw as well. So, the local sports talk guy in Ann Arbor, who was me, was calling him like the next Michael Vick. He might have been. He got hurt. And we never got to see him play quarterback. I wanted to see Antonio Bass. He had the name, he had the look, local product. It was disappointing. Shane thinks Warren will outplay Orji. Not Antoine, Antonio. Close. Yeah, you're talking about Big Joe. Big Joe Milton. That's what we're talking about. Big Joe Milton. All right, I've got a couple other things for you here. But before we go anywhere, let's go to Shane. Look at Shane. Last time we beat Ohio 3 in a row was for the 97 Natty. How about that? Well, let me just think back, because now you're talking about, I just mentioned when I was working as a sports talk show host in Ann Arbor. I started in the mid 90s, and the first ever press pass game that I had was the Pigskin Classic, Michigan and Virginia. It was Lloyd Carr's first game. And in 95, an odd year, Michigan played Ohio State in the last game of the year. And Ohio State was bringing in Eddie George, and they were like, they were top 5. They might have been the number 1 team in the country. It just looked like they had a big tight, Ricky Dudley, I think, this tight end. They're going to kill Michigan. They're going to kill Michigan. And we were doing predictions, and it came to me and said, who do you predict? And I said, I'm going to predict Michigan, because I don't predict anybody but Michigan. Ever. Whenever they said, who do you think's going to win? Michigan's going to win. So I picked Michigan. I went to that game. I was in the press box. I was on the sideline. Biaka Batuka ran for 313 yards, and the rest is history. I was taking a victory lap the next week. They said, you don't get credit for Michigan predicting that Michigan's beat Ohio State, because you always pick for Michigan. And then I decided for the rest of the time that if I really didn't think Michigan was going to win a game, I would predict that. And I've been operating that way to sometimes my detriment, like this year and last year when I picked Ohio State, and Michigan won both of those games. If I'd have just, homered it up the whole time, I could have been like, Michigan. I had Michigan beating them in 2021. I had Michigan beating them, but I didn't. But you're right. So Michigan beat Ohio State in 95. And then in 96, they went down to Columbus. And the Buckeyes had another great team. They had a corner named Sean Springs. And Ty Streets went on just this little crossing route, and Springs slipped just a little bit, and Streets took it the distance, and Michigan beat them like 13-6 in Columbus 2 years in a row. 2 big upsets. The unfortunate part is Michigan had 4 losses in each of those seasons, and Ohio State fans were like, yeah, you guys just get up for us, and, we're undefeated, and now you're just our spoiler. You had to hear all of that. And then, heading into the 97 season, there was this big story that came out in Sporting News. The front cover said, Dan Pompei was the writer, Shane. And Dan Pompei, there was a block M, and underneath it said, the block M stands for mediocrity in Michigan. Everybody was like, mediocrity? Because of the 4 lost seasons. And then Michigan went undefeated. And you're right. They beat Ohio State that year. 3 years in a row. And on that one, they won the national championship. So you're talking about history repeating itself. Okay? I like where you're coming from. I hear it. I see it. I like it. I appreciate that. Okay, let's get back. This is going to be, I'm not sure. I'm just trying something here. I want everybody to know, and I would love to see you on our posting boards. The Den, where we talk like this all day and all night. And we talk recruiting all day, all night, football, basketball, everything going on with Michigan. You can be in tune right now today with the Wolverines. You go to michigan.rivals.com and you end up having a bunch of fun and knowing everything about Michigan before anyone else. And it's a great thing. All right, couple things. You got hockey. It's that time of year. How about this? Michigan's going to play Ohio State tonight. And then on Saturday, what are they calling it? They're not calling it the Mistake by the Lake. That was their old stadium. Battle by the Lake. I don't know. They're calling it something like that. Michigan and Ohio State are playing at the Brown Stadium, XL Energy Center or whatever they call it. But the bottom line is that they're playing outside. Those games look cool. It was 70 degrees yesterday in Cleveland. Who knows what it's going to be like on Saturday, but Michigan and Ohio State outside where the Cleveland Browns play in a football field, that will look pretty cool. There's no doubt about that. All right. Nobody guessed at who would be a big enough Michigan fan to do this. And I'm going to play the audio again.
And he opens up his mouth and starts smiling, and across the front part of his teeth, he's got "Go Blue" spelled on his teeth.
Who would spell "Go Blue" on their teeth? Big Michigan guy, big Michigan fan, a former Michigan athlete, a great in Michigan sports. And everybody would know who that is talking. And I'm going to play. I want somebody, let's see if I get any guesses.
And he opens up his mouth and starts smiling, and across the front part of his teeth, he's got "Go Blue" spelled on his teeth.
Go Blue. Okay. Don't talk about the Browns. I'll take back all the nice things I've said about you. Hey, look. When it comes to the Browns are a little bit like the Lions. We have a tennis match of the worst organization in all of sports. I'm sorry, Andres. And a lot of the times, the Lions reclaimed it, I thought, for the last couple of years, because the Browns look like it wasn't last year, but the year before, the Browns won a playoff game. They won a playoff game, and things look pretty good. They get a great defense. They got a lot of nice players on defense. And then it's, whatever happened with Baker Mayfield, it just didn't happen. But the Lions, I thought, had seized back the worst franchise in all of professional sports. But the Browns, boy, they have the ability. It's like the Lions. You get this great optimism about, okay, now these things are heading in the right direction, and it just completely falls apart. The Lions sprung back, and now there's there's more optimism about the Lions than I've seen in almost my lifetime. This is very reminiscent of 2015 with the Detroit Lions. There hasn't been this much excitement in the offseason since, the Lions lost in 2014 in the playoffs to the Cowboys. And then heading into the 2015, they had a really good defense. They only had Ndamukong Suh, who they lost on their top-ranked defense, and they brought in Helow. Everybody, Stafford, Megatron, everybody was coming back. They went out in the draft and got an offensive lineman, which Lion fans always liked, got a running back. People were stoked. Now they went out and lost their first 7 out of 8 games. That wasn't good. But where am I at? Oh, yeah, the Browns. The Browns are back. I'm sorry, Andres. They're back down there at the bottom. Antoine doesn't like that Lions talk. He's been Lions free. Here it is. How about John? Let's give it up to John. John, you are right. Bob Ufer. spelled "Go Blue" on his teeth, and that was Bo's son, Shemmy Schembeckler, talking about it. And here's the story about Bob Ufer going down in the basement and showing Bo his teeth.
He was at our house all the time. You got to understand, his house was about 5 minutes from our house. So he would come over all the time, and we loved having Mr. Ufer. I mean, you talk about, if there ever was a Michigan man that ever lived, it would be Bob Ufer, okay? Yeah. And so I remember a story. I was probably, it was after we turned down the Texas A&M job, okay? And Bob Ufer comes over, and you got to understand, here's a guy that it never looked like he ever had a bad day in his life, okay? And he comes over to our house, and he's got this dour look on his face, like he's not smiling, which is very atypical for Bob Ufer. And he comes down into the basement where my dad's office is, and he comes down here. He goes, "Hey, Bo, I got something I got to show you." All right, and he comes down there, and I'm sitting there watching him. And he opens up his mouth and starts smiling, and across the front part of his teeth, he's got "Go Blue" spelled on his teeth. He starts cracking up. I go, "Hey, and so you forget, hey, you think I'm committed enough? I spelled "Go Blue" on my teeth." So my dad starts cracking up. He goes, "You're nuts, man, but we love you, buddy."
It's a big Michigan man. Michigan gets Bo Schembeckler back. He doesn't take the money and goes to Texas A&M. So Bob Ufer spells out "Go Blue" on his teeth and goes down and flashes his pearly whites at Bo. There you go. I went down the rabbit hole of teeth and fronts and grills. Richard talking about the radio horn. You're talking about the horn, the Ufer horn. Wah, wah, wah. I can tell you that Ufer's son would bring that horn out once in a while. The George Patton Schembeckler scoring horn, I believe is what it's called. He brought it out to a tailgate once or twice. I was able to hold that horn and squeeze it. I also had my recorder there the one time, and I was able to record my own audio of the scoring horn, and I used to play it. I like the scoring. I'm a big scoring horn guy, Richard. I'm glad you put that up there. But going down into the rabbit hole of teeth, and I know if you're familiar with it, your fronts, you can buy they're grills. You can put a diamond grill. And I thought, well, is there such thing as a maize and blue one? And then this, you just see two teeth I have up on the screen. There are. This one has diamonds in it, but it has yellow diamonds. And I don't know if those are blue diamonds or if that's some other kind of gem. But you can have a maize and blue front for the big Michigan fan in your life. And there's not just one. There's a couple, different renditions here. Antoine doesn't like them. I don't think I'm doing it either. If I'm getting a grill, an amazing blue grill, I'm getting one that, I actually can, put charcoal in. But if I was going with the actual grill for my teeth, would I go with the one on the right, which looks to be more, it doesn't look as natural. It looks more robotic, but the maize and blue grill also has just some like regular diamond fronts in there. But then you have the one that actually is curved like a tooth. And I would have to put them in to see just what they would look like. But just how big of a Michigan fan are you if you're putting a maize and blue grill in? It's a good point. It looked like you hadn't brushed your teeth with the yellow diamonds. Yeah, maybe you just say, hey, just give me the blue ones and skip the every other ones. I'll just have my regular teeth in there and people will think Andres needs those. I think this is the one on the right. And I would like to see if I could get that more. This one looks like it's smiling more, but now that I look at it, maybe not. It's straight across. But those are the grills that I came across just when I was looking for teeth, at teeth, and Go Blue and grills. That's what you get when you start messing around with the internet. Tomorrow, we will look at the Michigan State basketball game that will be played on Saturday night. That'll be a lot of fun. Until then, everybody, thanks so much for watching the show or listening to it, participating in it. We'll do it again tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Till then, everybody have